Three, two, one. On this episode of The Big Show, with 2020 firmly in our rearview mirrors by just a couple of days, we take this time to look forward to what 2021 has to offer in the field of entertainment. Joining me this week are critics Mike Sargent and Mae Abdubaki, as well as Wilson Morales, as we take this look into 2021. Let's go. All right, and welcome to episode 436 of The Big Show, keeping it real with Film Gordon. I am Charles Kirkland, sitting in the big chair today because, well, 2020 has been not the best year. If you can see behind me, there's a pair of crutches. And earlier this week, I had knee surgery that I went through. But that's nothing compared to the turmoil that our big boss has gone through. He is right now recovering from COVID-19. That's correct. He has been hit with the vid, as Kevin Hart would say. And so let's just keep our prayers going up for Tim as he recuperates from this terrible disease. And it just goes to show you that no matter where you are or who you are, this thing does not discriminate. You can get it. Anybody can get it. And so I'm sitting in the big chair for him. We've got all our prayers and hopes going forward for him that he'll be much better and that he'll be able to join us soon, hopefully for the next episode of The Big Show. So today we're going to take a look at 2021, and we're going to take a look at the most anticipated films of 2021. And I'm going to have a couple guests on, the wonderful Mike Sargent and the delightful Mae Abdubaki, who are going to join us and talk about some of the wonderful things that are coming, hopefully, in 2021, because, you know, a lot of the stuff that we're looking at is going to be things that we've seen that were supposed to be in 2020, and now they're coming for 2021. So we'll see, but there may be some other things that pop up that we really should look forward to. Now, before we get into the show, a couple of shows ago, we did the best television shows of 2020, and I need to put in a shout out because I've being laid up. I've binged watched Ted Lasso, and I have to say this now is the number one show of 2020 for me. Ted Lasso, Jason Sudeikis is Ted Lasso, and this show, the convergence of comedy and sports and just heart, and I mean it's a great show. I mean, Mandalorian had some, like, its last episode had this super giant twist to it that made everybody excited in the last couple episodes, a matter of fact. But Ted Lasso was from beginning to end just incredible. So if you haven't had a chance to check out Ted Lasso on Apple TV, take some time to go check it out because it is totally worth it. Now, so moving on, I'm going to bring in our good friend Wilson Morales. At the top of every show, we go to New York to see what's happening in the world of entertainment. And we're going to have Wilson join us, who is the editor-in-chief of blackfilmandtv.com. And he's going to join us to tell us about whatever is happening in New York. Hopefully, I mean, they just had the big ball drop where nobody attended. I mean, did you watch the ball drop this year in 2021, Wilson?
Well, you just dropping me now. It's like I heard half your conversation. It was like I was just telling Tim, was like, where are your people at?
Well, I did my intro and everything, and so now we got to this point where we're welcoming you into the show, editor-in-chief from blackfilmandtv.com. How's it going out there in New York?
Quiet, not much to do. Same old, same old. Nothing's changed. All you hear about the news is, more cases of COVID rising here and there. So, that's where we're at right now. So all we can do is just say, soldier on, stay indoors, continue to work from indoors.
Well, you weren't here at the beginning of the show, but I'm sure that he informed you that Tim himself has been struck with COVID, and so that's why he's not hosting the show today. So did you have anything that you want to Any get well wishes that you want to express on the air of the show?
Unless he's losing weight and looks differently, I'm like, he could have done the show. I'm like, if I can get on for a good 10 minutes, he could have gone on for a good 10 minutes, goes, all right, I'm feeling a little peaky, let me go back to sleep or whatever. But nevertheless, obviously, we wish for a speedy recovery, Tim, do your thing, obviously get well, that's all I can say is like, hey, just get well, get back next week. If Trump of all people can make it happen in 3 days,
right?
You know what I'm saying? It's like, so.
Well, Tim's not going to have that miracle cocktail that Trump had. So, I mean, we expect it's going to take a little bit longer for him. I think he'll be back for the next show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So as I was saying, New York is kind of quiet, and I think the best exemplification of that is that when they had the ball drop on New Year's Eve, there were like 20 people maybe at total in Times Square, and they had the Planet Fitness guys waving in the background, but there was nobody there. It's really, really
20 people out of a million. Imagine that, 20 people out of a million.
Yeah.
Even 500,000. Everybody. Obviously, you think back to the days for those who live on the East Coast or live in New York. Like I've done that before. I've gone to Times Square, and it always got to be packed. And you had to be there early to get in that little spot where you're going to be at for hours. There's no moving around. It's basically shoulder to shoulder, block to block. Or a little space of area you can find. Just to kind of see the ball drop and be next to somebody. And to not have that this year just goes to a testament like, hey, the act of, just being near anybody, the physical interaction is, it's at an all-time high to not have it, not have it. So but, hopefully this is only a 1-year thing. And by this time next year, we can get into a better position.
Well, I know 2 years ago, I think, was my first time being in Times Square as an adult. And when I went to the Urban World Festival that was there. And so I had to go through Times Square. And even because it happens in August, September, even at that time, it was crowded in Times Square. So I can imagine what it would have been like on New Year's Eve. So what's news? What's going on in the world of entertainment?
Well, usually this is the quiet time when everybody starts talking about the best of 2020, a look back and so forth. And then obviously, as we're going to get like upcoming films, usually around the first weeks of January, you get like the throwaways, because people are still talking Oscar movies, but since the whole trajectory has changed and the Oscar calendar has moved back to move back to at least February instead of December. You still have films in contention, but as a colleague said, the consumers are the winners because of the fact that you have these movies playing on streaming channels. Everybody gets a chance to see these movies, not like the old days where if you would have had a Wonder Woman 1984 dominate 3,000 screens and you get a Ma Rainey only in a few screens. The fact that everything's being played on Netflix and HBO Max and Hulu and Amazon, everybody's on the same playing field. You can catch them. And for a lot of the independent films, they don't have to worry about the box office.
Right.
It's like a lot of times, you get these reports like, oh, this made a certain amount and this limited the release. And if it wasn't like record, a record shattering number, by week 2 is DOA and it's next film, you can still talk about a movie a month later. Like, oh, if you haven't had a chance to catch this movie, check it out. It's pretty good. It's directed by so-and-so. It stars so-and-so, or it features a breakout performance by so-and-so, so that's where we're at, so we have these movies that were held back from last year. They're going to be coming out this year, which is what I guess the topic of the show is, anticipated films of 2021, so you think about like, what was slated to come out last year that's still going to come out this year at the right time,
right.
Or did you have your list at hand, or is there any particular film you wanted to go over?
I had a couple things, but my first question is actually, how do we delineate 2021 from 2020 now? Because like you said, the Oscar season has been pushed so far back. where do we start saying this is a 2020 film and this is a 2021 film? What do you
Well,
think?
a 2020 film is not going to be considered a 2020 film because of the fact that, like, if it didn't play on Christmas Day, it's considered 2021 because the masses haven't seen it. You know, you got a movie like One Night in Miami that only played on Christmas Day and then playing probably in select theaters. But it came out of a time period where nobody's really going out. So by the time it hits Amazon on January 15, a lot of people will see it. You got a film like Fatale that got released on December 18th in theaters, and it's, you know, it had its share of audiences, but most people won't see it till it hits on demand on January 8th. You know, and then you have movies that just got pushed back to 2021 because they're like, hey, let's take our luck, you know, 2021, you know, depending how far back they made that move. You know, you got a movie like Respect, which stars Jennifer Hudson, that was supposed to be released December, but got pushed back and taken out of the Oscar race all the way to August, which is maybe a smart move, maybe in terms of like, they want people to see it on the big screen. And the hope is that, like, if we're at a point where we're getting back to a normalcy, I don't think it'll be at 100%. But if we can get theaters open to some extent, people may go see it in the theaters. I think, you know, New York and California is still shut down.
Yeah.
But had it been open, at some point, maybe after a month or two, I probably would have gone to see Tenet on the big screen. You know, because the only fact that, okay, it's been 2 months, I'm sure, you know, it's probably died. The anticipation has gone from a lot of people's mind, and they probably would have seen it. You know, so I probably would have picked out a theater to just go see it if it was in New York City.
Right.
You know, I eventually saw it on by the time it hit, you know, on demand and Blu-ray, and so that's it. But, you know, the fact is, New York and LA, the two biggest markets that bring in money to the box office, are still not open.
Okay. I mean, you got films like Nomadland and all those things that are still waiting for release. I mean, I think that they have to have some kind of December release, but their major theatrical release hasn't occurred yet, but they're still considered for the Oscars for 2020. So I was just curious.
Because the Oscar race, because you have to February 28th. The contending mark, the calendar is up to February 28th. So anything that's why they can wait till January and February to release it, because they're still within the calendar year. You know, you still have movies that are like Judas and the Black Messiah, you know, that's going to come out. You got Malcolm and Marie, you know, you got to come out. You got Pieces of a Woman, you know, it's still going to come out. You know, you got The Falls with Anthony Hopkins. These are movies that have been talked about, that's played at festivals, that everybody knows are in the race. So there was no rush to release it early on. I think, you know, like anything else, I think when there's a deadline, you rather release it closer to the deadline where you're getting the buzz, where people take more of an interest. Anything that was released early last year, no one's really talking about. A movie like The Way Back with Ben Affleck was a pretty good film. Yeah. You know, that had it been released in the fall, you may be talking about Ben Affleck as a contender. The film itself, you know, there would have been some buzz. But as it is right now, and it could still be, but it seems so long ago that movie was played, and it's been played on cable, you know, that, you know, no one's really put it on top of their top 5. Most of you look online and you look to see any of these Oscar sites, they're talking about films that have just been released or have yet to be released, but are being released within the time period.
Well, I think one of my darlings of 2020 is Minari, and I'm hoping that I know we just had a foreign film last year win the best film, and I don't think Minari is actually a foreign film because it's Korean Americans, but I'd like to see some recognition for that film as well.
Well, the thing with Parasite is that it had a momentum. It won Cannes, and little by little, it was like the engine that could. You know, the little turtle that, you know, because of the fact that in the history of the Oscars, you never had a foreign film win Best Picture. You know, the experts, pundits all believe like, oh, it's never happened before. You know, when you're working with those odds, you know, but the people spoke. They kept saying, yo, this movie's really good. This movie's really good. It started with the momentum. It reached social media. And I think as people got to see it, because it's not always easy to sit there and pay attention to a foreign film. But in the last few years, because of films like Rona and now, Parasite, Rona definitely shipped off that stigma of not counting foreign films.
Yeah.
That by the time you got to Parasite and the buzz was getting stronger, yes. Now Minari, it's not really a foreign film, but they may consider it. I think it's being considered that. But you have some strong performances, and but this year is different. Like you really need a big buzz. You need people to see it. It can't just be the people that talk, because as you saw with Rona, 10 nominations, but it didn't win the top prizes.
Right.
It didn't win
the
prizes.
Didn't have the under support that it needed to get the win that it should have had. So yeah. Tell us about. I know the new trailer for The Little Things dropped this just recently with Denzel Washington and a couple other Oscar winners. And what do you? What is there any buzz for that film?
It's a caper film. Warner's hasn't really been promoting it as much. You have obviously Denzel Washington, Oscar winner, Jared Leto, Oscar winner, Rami Malek, Oscar winner. That's the sell itself. And then you think back to say, hey, a lot of times when you have, Warner Brothers has Judas and the Black Messiah coming up, and you have Lakeith Stanfield and Daniel Kaluuya in that film based on the tragedy of Fred Hampton. I think, from an Oscar point of view, that's a better sell than a caper movie. But then you think back to Training Day, which was another just what you would have considered a solid B caper, film thriller.
Yeah.
But the performances of Denzel and Ethan Hawke were so high, that both of them got nominated. So we don't know what to expect from The Little Things. It's like, I guess as people get to see it, we'll know. It's like, hey, this could be a contender, and then the Warners will decide how to market it. So like they could just be waiting. And sometimes it's like you don't want to blow your wad too early.
Right.
It's like let's wait. The same thing for Lee Daniels' movie, The United States versus Billie Holiday, which recently was sold to Hulu from Paramount. And you got singer Andra Day in her big screen, highly profiled role as Billie Holiday. So we don't know what to get from that, because when Jennifer Hudson came out in Dreamgirls, she played the role that won a Tony on Broadway. This is not it. So we don't know what to get. I think back to when Viola Davis was nominated for Doubt. Doubt was a Tony Award-winning play.
Right.
The character that Viola played in the movie is the same role that got Adrian Lennox a Tony. So it's sort of like, okay, sometimes when you get these movies, same thing for The Father. Anthony Hopkins is playing a role that got Frank Langella a Tony on Broadway.
Right.
So that's why it's like, it's like, okay, it's Anthony Hopkins. He's playing an award-winning performance.
Yeah.
So we don't know what to get out of the United States versus Billie Holiday. Same thing for Judas and the Black Messiah. And you never know what else, who's going to pop up and get that momentum. Not everything is so easily understood. Even with Best Actor, you've got, Chadwick Boseman, as they talk about, Ma Rainey, and it's out already. You've got a few films that's out there, but could anyone come out and top it? When there's so much time that goes by before the nominations, anything can happen. Nothing's so hands down.
Yeah, it's just a whole different year this year with the Oscars being, and I think they're going to keep it in this slot for the next year, is what I've heard. So we're going to be running into the same kind of craziness next year as we get toward and we may not have the whole problem with COVID shutting down theaters, but it's going to be how everything is going to be tight again as far as who's going to be in the race. So,
you have movies that were supposed to come out last year, that are coming in this year, including West Side Story, which obviously we know what the original did, and you have In the Heights, that was supposed to play out last summer, so there's a number of performances, a number of films, obviously, that were slated to come out last year. It's going to come out this year. You've got Warner Brothers from Warner Brothers Dune. a lot of heavily anticipated films.
Well, I mean, that's what we're here for today. We're going to be talking about the most anticipated films of 2021, and I'm bringing in the wonderful Mike Sargent, who's got his video up for us so we can see him. Welcome to the show. Live long and prosper.
Thank you, thank you. Wilson Morales, I haven't seen you since last year.
Yeah, when that's what happens when you can't return a call.
Wait, when you call me? You called me? You never.
Oh my gosh! Here we go. Here we go.
We're not gonna go there.
And also with us, joining us, is the wonderful Mae Abdubaki, who's from Movies with Mae. I don't know if she's going to have video with us, but can we hear your wonderful voice?
Hello, gentlemen. I will not be on video today because I was not prepared to be on video today, but I'm so thrilled to be with you all.
I was singing that same song, man.
Hey, put on a baseball cap, little makeup here and there, and you don't have to go all out. So let us see you.
Well, nice lettering, Mae. Just want to say.
It would still be good to have a rose with all these thorns on the screen. So, I mean, if you can figure it out, that'd be nice. But if not,
you put up a still photo. Put up a still photo. Oh,
here I am.
Here we go. All right.
Hey.
How are you?
So I'm seeing that that Tim didn't do a good job of letting you guys know what kind of podcast this was or what kind of show this was. It's a video show, not just audio. Because Mike was like, I wasn't prepared, and so fortunately I spoke with him and he got the opportunity. So Tim is down. You guys heard he's got the virus. So
wow.
Oh no, I did not hear.
No, I didn't hear that. No.
I just saw a picture of Tim on the beach somewhere. Just kidding.
So before we get started, do you guys have anything that you may want to say to Tim, just to, words of encouragement for him?
Sure. My word of encouragement to Tim is, Tim, I got COVID and I recovered and I am still here. So I'm sure you will do the same.
Yeah, feel better. I mean, I know it's really hard, but I hope that it's a swift recovery and I hope the symptoms aren't so bad. And let us know if you need anything because we're always here for you.
That's nice. That's very nice. Now, I'll tell you, just like Wilson said before, sometimes we got to play hurt. You can see I got crutches behind me from where I had my knee surgery just this week, and now I'm here on the show. So, being the guy he is, I would have expected him to just suck it up.
Yeah, as they say in sports in that movie, The Program, are you hurt or are you injured?
So anyway, welcome to the show, guys. We're going to be talking about the most anticipated movies of 2021. I hope he told you this, so he didn't just bring you in so that you could be prepared for the day. So I'm going to start with Mae, since she's the rose. We talked a little bit about a lot of things that were scheduled for 2020 have gotten moved back to 2021. So, I mean, I guess you can still consider those as anticipated films because you got the whole Marvel slate that, I mean, I would look forward to in 2020 and now in 2021. But what were things that are slated for 2021 that you think are most anticipated for you?
I think the top ones are probably In the Heights, the musical that, I was really looking forward to seeing in theaters with an audience, but now it's coming to HBO Max, which is fine. I think that we've had to kind of adjust to the situations and the circumstances.
I've seen it already.
Oh, you have? Is it good?
Really good. It's good.
Excellent. I'm really looking forward to that one. And obviously Candyman, Nia DaCosta, Yahya Abdul-Mateen, just seeing that remake on screen. There was a lot of hype for it last year and we unfortunately did not get to see it. So hopefully that will be a movie we get to see, if not together, but we can talk about it together. And obviously Judas and the Black Messiah, I'm really looking forward to that film. And Quiet Place Part 2. I don't know really what to expect from this sequel, considering that the first one ended really well, in my opinion. Yeah. But I look forward to seeing the creativity that they put behind it, because I really don't know what's in store for that. And then Raya and the Last Dragon looks beautiful. The animation looks wonderful, and I'm really looking forward to that. And then in terms of Marvel stuff, it's it's kind of weird that we went like a whole year for the first time in maybe 10 years that we didn't have any Marvel movies out. But I'm really looking forward to Eternals. We have yet to see a trailer, but I think it's like one of the Marvel movies that is going to introduce a bunch of new characters into the MCU. And I'm looking forward to seeing like how that kind of plays into the rest of the universe that they're building.
Right. Okay. All right. Solid list. Solid list. How about you, Brother Sargent? What's on your list for most
well, probably definitely some of the films that Mae mentioned, but I'm probably looking forward to 3,000 Years of Longing. That's the fantasy romance with Tilda Swinton and Idris Elba. I don't know if you know about that. I'm looking forward to that. Now my list reveals that I'm a huge science fiction fan, so I'm also looking forward to After Yang. It's a Korean American filmmaker named Koganada, and that's where it's a sci-fi film where
Colin Farrell.
What's that?
Colin Farrell's in that film.
Yes, he is. Colin Farrell is in that film. See, I talk about the filmmaker. He talks about the actors because that's why we work together. Of course, I'm looking forward to Coming to America. I'm really disappointed that we won't get to see that in the theater because there's nothing like seeing a comedy like that with the intended audience. I mean, that's part of the movie. So
well, Warner has said that they're going to do dual release, that it's going to be on HBO Max and in theaters at the same time.
Coming to America is an Amazon release.
Oh, that's Amazon. Right. That's right.
Amazon release. You're right. You're right.
Well, I mean, let's put it this way. That's the kind of movie that it would hit theaters on a Friday and been on 125th Street bootleg by Saturday. So it's just one of those movies that, the first weekend or two with everybody seeing it is what you want. So sure, I'm not going to be going to the movie theater. I live in New York, and even if the theaters were open, I don't know how quick I'd go back because people are crazy. If we have time, I'll tell you about the last screening I went to in New York, what that was like before the lockdown. But I am also, of course, looking forward to the new Bond film, No Time to Die. Daniel Craig's last film with a black female James Bond, like 007. I'm all with that. And Dune. I mean, how can, I've seen all the versions of Dune. I read the books when I was in high school. So I love Denis Villeneuve. So that looks like the best adaptation of Dune yet. So I'm looking forward to that. West Side Story, I'm curious. I feel like it's sort of like when they remade, 10 Commandments. Like, okay, it's in Egypt. There are no Egyptians. So, I'm curious. And like, Mae mentioned a couple of the ones I'm interested in. Ghostbusters Afterlife. I'm curious. I'm very curious, like what they did, how they got to get Bill Murray to come back. They had to have done something funny because
money.
No, come on. They've been offering money for a long time. And Bill Murray said, no. So I'm curious about that. And of course, I have to mention Top Gun Maverick because I'm curious what they're going to do with that. It's going to be, I didn't think that much of the first Top Gun, honestly. So I'm curious if this would be better or worse. So
I had the pleasure of being at the Naval Academy for a screening of the first Top Gun and being around a bunch of midshipmen as they're shouting at the screen. Just made the movie a lot better than it actually was for me. So I'm with you. I don't know what they can do as far as the sequel, and because the first movie wasn't really that great. But
exactly.
I think the only thing I remember from that movie is "Take My Breath Away," and that's all I can really say.
Here's the thing: everything old is new again. You look, obviously we're all home now, and you look at the audience that's watching Cobra Kai season 3 now that it's on Netflix. When the first 2 seasons were on YouTube and nobody paid no mind, but then once it hit Netflix, obviously we're home and you started watching it. For anybody old enough to remember the Karate Kid 1 and 2, and you're like, oh, these characters are coming back, and you're following along the story. So when you think about Top Gun, you're like, okay, let's see how this is going to play out, and whether or not we're going to get appearances from any of the other squad, like a Val Kilmer or some of those other guys in there to see how it plays out. So I think that sells, which is why a lot of these movies got pushed back to 2021, is that it's got a built-in audience. And all these studios early on were thinking that maybe at some point COVID will drop down and we can get back to a certain percentage back in the theaters. And, these are movies that were expensive to make And so everybody wants to make money.
Yeah.
You know, which is why you see Legendary Pictures arguing with Warner Bros. Like, wait a minute, we didn't get the heads up you were going to play our movie in on HBO Max. We put up a good chunk. You know, we want to make money. You know, this is a movie that can make close to 800 million. You know, we ain't just want to give it out to the masses for free. You know, let people experience the big screen. So when you have movies like that, you got a movie like Fast 9, who I think will push back 2-3 years. It's like, oh, you know, we want to see it again, you know, to see where the next, you know, they've got 2 more films in that franchise to go. Where, you know, there's that. There's obviously, as you mentioned, the James Bond film, Mission Impossible. We just recently saw Tom Cruise, you know, yelling at the crew like, hey, let's get this done. Let's get this done right. People want to see it, you know. People are waiting to, they you know, we're the epitome of what action films, big budget films, if we do it right, then everybody can follow our suit.
Yeah,
you know?
well, he was also yelling, "You can't handle the truth." No, I'm kidding.
You know, so you got those. You know, you got like the Marvel movies. You know, you got the Black Widow. You know, can Scarlett, you know, bring in an audience on her own? You know, with her set of characters in that franchise. You know, DC Suicide Squad. You know, let's see what happens when you bring some of these characters along with a whole bunch of new characters.
Well, let's see what happens with Black Adam, because that's also coming out in 2021.
Is it 2021? I don't know.
Sure,
because I figure they're still making cast announcements. You know.
Yeah, I think 2022, because the last we heard, they haven't started filming yet, correct?
Yeah, they haven't started filming yet. I think they've moved that one.
Maybe it is 20. Yeah, I guess you're right. You're right.
And here's the film.
Maybe I'm thinking of Matrix 4, because that's the end.
That's the one I was going to say. The Matrix 4. You know, like. You know, the first one's a classic. 2 and 3, debatable. So, you know,
what? As good films or films, period? Like, classic doesn't enter the conversation for me.
You know, like,
they were definitely films, but I don't. They were not
classic. wouldn't throw that.
The first Matrix, you know, remember the first Matrix won 4 Oscars, and it was like for that movie. You know, at the time, people were like, "Oh, you know what it did with technology and the Oscar." You know, it's like, "Oh, here's this sci-fi movie that it didn't just win 1 Oscar; it won 4." You know what I'm saying? And so, before 2 and 3 were made, people were like, "Oh, Neo and Morpheus and, you know, Trinity characters you remember." And then once we got 2 and 3, you know, then everybody has their own different sets of opinions. It's like, where did they take the story? So now they're coming back with 4. Serves obviously past 10 years later. Just like, okay, how's this going to work out? You know, the actors are older. You know, where are we going with the story? So we'll be curious to see what they do with that. You know, like I said, you got a lot of these movies. They're from franchises. They're more than 10 years old. You know, that has a built-in audience, and you know, and because everything's streaming, you know, people are going to go back to see the. You know, like who knows if it's a HBO Max will put out 1, 2, and 3 before we see 4 again. You know, so they're going to rake in just for having an audience see those movies again. You know, same thing like Mission Impossible and Furious. You know, I'm sure there's going to be someone putting up all Furious movies once again, back to back before you get to Fast 9.
I don't know about all that. I don't know about that. I think we're seeing a change. There's going to be a change in this whole business, how things are. I think streaming is I think they were in the process of cannibalizing their audience to begin with. But I think there's a certain point, you know, sure, I love seeing the movie with the intended audience. It's the thing I miss most about seeing a film with critics. But I also think that at this point, you know, when you don't have to, wherever you live, we live in a city. So, you know, I live in Manhattan, you know, Wilson, you know, in New York and California are different, but you still got to get in a car. You got to, you know, pay for parking. You got to worry about popcorn. If it's a kid's movie, forget it. You've got, you know, it's an expensive proposition versus subscribing for 10 or 15 bucks a month, getting everybody in the living room and, you know, firing up the microwave and you're good to go.
Which is why Universal did well the first time out with the animated film. I forgot what it was, you know, and they made a lot of money on pay-per-view. And then that's why Disney chose to take their movies geared for kids to Disney Plus, because they were like, hey, listen, parents are not taking out their kids to the movie theaters, you know, so we're better off showing it to them on Disney Plus. Obviously, they had a big spike in their membership, you know, when you have Hamilton, you know, and then you have Beyonce, then you have Mulan, you know, and everything else that's playing on there. So, like, yeah, you're right. You know, it's anything that's going to cost the parking and
I think the movie experience will be few and far between. I think it's going to be split between big movies and the almost dinner theater setup of independent films. I think that's going to be the other end of the spectrum. I mean, we'll see, but I think movies and that whole experience, the way we know it, I think those days are over.
Yeah, I think it will be experienced.
I want to ask a quick question because you mentioned Dune as one of your anticipated films of this coming year, but Dune has been done a couple times, and I'll be the first to say I've read the books, and it's kind of like A Wrinkle in Time. It's kind of hard to be nailed down into a 2-3 hour span of a film. Do you really think that? Denis Villeneuve?
Yeah, I do. I do. All right. Well, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you going to say?
I was going to say Villeneuve is a great director, but is it actually able to be this movie to be done well? Is what my question.
I tend to believe so. I mean, from everything I've seen, not just the cast, but the way he's imagined the world of Dune. Dune is it's a world, it's a universe, and you kind of got to tease out a certain amount of information as you go along. And the reality is the Sci-Fi Channel, though it was low budget and lots of, mostly no-name actors, was actually more faithful to the book than David Lynch. And in many ways was better, except that, some of those castings from the original Dune had a fantastic cast. How are you going to watch somebody else play Fade after you've seen Sting, So that being said, but I also think some of the racial dynamics that he's put in, making the Sand people of color, I think adds, the thing we have to remember, I think, about science fiction from the 60s specifically, 60s and 70s, it was always what good science fiction is, social commentary, exactly. And I think Villeneuve gets that. It's not about weirdness and, David Lynch, the spice, plans within plans, how weird, It's more than that. It's really having a lot to say about society, about mysticism, about spirituality, about gender, politics. I love the fact that the women, I don't know, Mae, have you read the books? Are you familiar with them?
I'm familiar with the books. I have not actually read them. I think my biggest thing is the fact that the author kind of borrows a lot from Middle Eastern culture and Islamic religion. And my issue with the new films is that the casting didn't really reflect any of that.
More than any others. I don't think there are any other people of color in any of the other Dune books or movies. Have there been?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
This one does obviously add in a lot of people of color, but there's still not a lot of MENA people in there as well. So that's the biggest thing, is that it borrows from that region, but then that region's people are kind of dismissed.
Well, you see, I think for that same reason, I think that's why I think it will work. I think that I think Denis, it's Denis, isn't it? Denis Villeneuve, I think that he acknowledges that just from the casting alone, not making all of the Sand people the same type of, let's just say, Europeans that we see as the Leto Atreides and the Baron Harkonnen. So I think it's the raping the people of their land and disregarding their culture. I think that's part of what Dune was about, and I think that he gets that. So the same reason you're worried, I'm sort of optimistic. So did we answer your question, Charles?
It would be nice to see it out on the big screen, obviously.
Please, of course.
As granted, we're all investing in 50-inch, and Mike has that big 65-inch TV.
Hey, don't hate.
No, I'm not hating, but it'd be nice to go to the theaters, to see it. And granted, I'm sure there are a few theaters out there that for the press they'll allow to see it on the big screen where there's only one of us in that theater. You can experience that, but they don't have it in New York City. But yeah, they're, like I said, a lot of these movies, they got pushed back to 2021, and we're like, hey, the producers we want people to see it on the big screen, and while it's good, we're home, we're alone, or have somebody with us watch these movies at home. And that's the new plateau for now, is that you want, it's not so much going to be about money, it's more about getting the eyes on it. Because now it's about having your movie be talked about. You don't want to just be that movie that gets looked up on Google and no one really see it. You want to be that movie that everybody got a chance to see, and they're talking about it and it's trending. because everybody's seeing it around a certain time period when it's maybe a holiday or whatever. Like you look now, as I said earlier, January is usually the month of like dump movies, where you're just dumping stuff just like, oh, but no, right out the gate, we're going to still get quality movies, because it's going to be jam-packed throughout the whole year, until people release, especially with Warner saying, oh, all that stuff is going to be on HBO Max. Disney's doing the same thing, and now Marvel's got to decide, okay, what are we going to do? As we're getting at this point right now, more COVID, it's like every day, it's like the game is changing and the goalpost keeps moving. Like, are we still going to wait it out to get theaters, or we just like, hey, bite the bullet? Once Marvel decides we're going to be on Disney Plus, it's game over. Because all these theaters know they're waiting.
I think it's already game over. I think it's already game over. I think that the model is that, yeah, they have all these TV series that you're going to subscribe to, but I think unless you can really, look how much money did the latest big releases that came out of Christmas make?
Wonder Woman, I think, is made a little over 100,
80 million or 100 million.
Yeah, it's obviously far short.
Worldwide. That's not just here. It's worldwide.
That's worldwide.
Wonder Woman made first time 800 million. And obviously, you knew that's not going to happen. So if they can get to somewhere, if they can get to 400, which is a lot to say, but let's just say they get a fraction of the 800, that wouldn't be so bad, considering the fact that a lot more people are seeing it on HBO Max than going to the theaters. And that's what, it's going to be a long time before anybody makes that $1 billion.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen anymore, though, Wilson. I think that the whole business model has changed. I think we're headed towards like video games. That billion, that 800 million that any film made over a course of 6 weeks, 8 weeks worldwide, a video game can make in a weekend. And I think that direct release, if they know they don't have to wait to the second or third quarter to make the money back, because they've got the subscription model. Again, this is just my prediction. I hope I'm wrong, but that's what I see.
A big part of the theater experience is kind of experiencing it with people, right? Like I remember like Spider-Man 3 was a terrible movie, but like my theater experience of it was just phenomenal. It was one of my most memorable. So to have that be gone it's really depressing. I agree with you, Mike, that the studios and the theater relationship in general is kind of like shifting, and now that everything is going to be on streaming, it's going to be a little bit awkward in terms of how we see a movie and how we experience a movie and how long it's talked about, because we see with even like Netflix, a show drops and then after a weekend no one really talks about it anymore. And network TV shows, for example, that conversation can continue, but with a movie it's couple hours, one and done, you move on to the next thing. So it's going to be really interesting to see like how people are also discussing movies moving forward, outside of film Twitter and other critics and things like that.
That's where the marketing comes in. I think just mentioned, the thing with Netflix, it's like, there's this big anticipation, and then the week it's released, there's a big bump, everybody's talking about it, but then what happens week 2? It's like, and Netflix is.
I don't think it matters. I think all these channels need to do is make sure you stay subscribed. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter whether it bombed or if everybody saw it, you're happy that you can see it because you have Netflix, then that's all that matters. Again, I feel like, Ebenezer Scrooge here. I'm just not very optimistic.
I think it changes the way we kind of measure the success of a movie too, because now, you can't really know how many watches it gets on the internet or on the streaming services or wherever. So, how do you grade a movie? How do you grade actors or actresses anymore? How do you allocate the funds when you have no idea where they're going or how they're coming in? And so the world is just, I think Mike is right in that we're going to see a lot more going direct to subscribe to
or day and date
purchase. Day and date thing, and they can monitor that easier than if it's on HBO Max, where they gotta say, okay, how many people actually watched it. But when you get that money that comes in directly for buying that film, that's where it's going to change.
Well, the other thing to have to consider here is the other factor or component of the market is theater chains. Theater chains are not going to make it, okay, unless some of these studios, let's say a Disney or an Amazon or Netflix started it, buys these theaters. Then they get both sets of money, because at this point, the reason the theater chains are so upset is because they have to give like 80% of the box office away for any new release film anyway. So they only make money with popcorn. And if you have popcorn, then that means, well, nobody's wearing a mask while they eat. So it's sort of, how can this business model work?
Looking at,
and I know AMC at least has the, they have a new format where you pay $99. You can see an old release. You have 20 of your friends at the most. I mean, that sounds really fun for like a birthday party. And that's a really great idea to kind of keep everything contained, your own little group, without having to worry about people who may have been unsafe coming in and eating popcorn like near you. And I mean, even before, people would kind of get seats and they would just sit next to you and the theater is empty. So now you won't have that problem. So that would be interesting to see like how AMC fares moving forward with that model. Cause I know Regal's completely closed because of COVID. So
I look at Universal, and they had an earlier battle with AMC, and I forgot what the latest negotiations that they had. They still have Jurassic World, Dominion, Candyman, and Halloween Kills. Huh?
Still playing, you're saying?
No, coming up.
Coming up.
Jurassic World, Dominion, Candyman, and Halloween Kills. And I don't think they have a streaming platform. So like, let's see what they do with those movies and how they're going to release it, like whether or not, like, we have to wait to see, like, everybody's waiting to see, like you said, Regal's done and AMC is struggling because every day there's a new strain, no one's going to the theaters, as you hear every day, it's like, nope, it's just tossing the towel, when the minute that Respect decided to not just get out the Oscars, so hey, let's move to August, thinking like, things will be calm. We want to have a little bit of an audience see this on there because it's MGM. Where are they going to put it on? Like they have to find a streaming network. If theater's not going to be the route. Like they're all now vying to see like, like the fact that Paramount's just having a fire sale on all their films. Like they gave the Trial of Chicago 7 to Netflix. They gave Love First to Netflix. They gave Coming to America to Amazon. They gave Without Remorse, the Michael B. Jordan film, to Paramount. Now they've got the Willie Daniels movie to Hulu. They're just having a fire sale because anytime you plan a theatrical release, that involves P&A money.
And they put a lot of money into reshoots for that Lee Daniels movie too. So,
P&A money, people don't realize cost. It's like, are you going to pay for a banner that no one's going to see if no one's driving? It's like, are you going to put you're going to put out trailers on a TV show? And what are you saying? It's going to be playing at this theater? So that, it's sort of like, do you burn money on the P&A? How do you sell it? Hey, let's get it off our hands. Let somebody else worry about it.
See, that's the other thing too. If you already subscribe, there's no money on P&A. If there's a Netflix film, you watch Netflix, I'll tell you about it because I'm advertising to my built-in audience. Well, something you mentioned, and I have to share this story with you. Wilson may know the story. The very last film I went to see in March last year, I went to see a movie called My Spy. Okay. Which I actually liked and I didn't expect to. And I went to, it was a, here in New York, I don't know how they do it where you guys are. Where are you, Mae? I don't know where you, Charles,
I'm right outside of Washington, D.C., in Alexandria.
And you, where are you, Charles?
I'm in D.C. area too.
Oh, you're in D.C. area. All right. So what they do, we go to a lot of critic screenings, and if you're Wilson, they may just have a little mini theater for you. But sometimes they have, like a combo, like they have critics and they have an audience come because,
right.
If it's a family film or a comedy, they want you to see how the audience would react. And like you said, Mae, it influences the experience. And I went to see this, the film is going along well. It's 20 minutes in and all of a sudden a woman started, you better stop that. You're coughing on my child. I did not cough on your child. Yes, you did, bitch. Who are you calling? And this went on for like 5 minutes. We thought they were going to come to blows. The whole audience had to tell them, please calm down. Now, I can only think, considering what this country is like, where some people literally just will, let's just call them anti-maskers. Who do you know who you're going to be sitting next to? You go into the movie theater, they may make you wear a mask, but once you're inside the theater, they're not going to have people policing. So, you have one encounter like that. Like for me, I'm good. Until like everybody's vaccinated, I'll keep watching on my 65-inch TV. So, and I think that that's a factor. It's not just the movie theater, but it's who's going to be there because you can't police every aspect of going to the movie theater. I mean, you guys can tell me what you think, but that's just my opinion.
I mean, I know when you go to screenings, you usually have a guy there with the night scope. And
right. That's right.
Yeah, but I feel like they never do anything, to be honest, because we've all been to screenings where they just kind of walk around, and the best that they can do is tell someone to,
turn off
either leave or keep quiet, but that's not.
That might unless they have those glasses, infrared glasses, like mask up.
Even in those
instead of turn off your cell phone and say mask on.
Yeah, and even in those press screenings, I remember it was the same group of people constantly too. So it's just like about access and who gets to see those movies as well. And there was so much ruckus, and I remember there was one lady who's sitting.
That's how you'll be eating your popcorn. You'll be like this.
Yeah, it's really awkward. I know I don't feel like comfortable being in a group right now at all. So I'm with Mike. Like, until everyone's vaccinated, I just can't go back to the theater and all.
Yeah, it's like you ask, how did Tim get it? I thought he was always indoors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Mae didn't even want to be on the screen with us. That's how.
You're right.
She thought it was
I was unprepared.
She thought it was gonna you get it through technology. Like, what?
That's the new strain.
It's like touch the screen. You got it.
All right.
That's a scary thought.
The last movie though that no one seemed to mention was Spiral. I'm very curious at how Chris Rock is going to do this new.
There we go again. Another old one.
And so I'm looking forward to seeing that one. So I guess we're running out of time here. I'm going to ask Mae to tell everyone how they can read your content or get in contact with you, or however they can reach you.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm usually writing for pajiba.com, The Young Folks, and I'm actually starting at Screen Rant next week. So you can read all of my content and movie reviews there. And I'm also on Twitter if you'd like to interact with me at MAEABDU.
All right. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. I'm very excited.
Mike Sargent, your turn. Where can we read your content?
Well, I'm audio, so I have I have one podcast called Too Fast, Too Films. I'm also on WBAI. I'm the film critic there. I have a show called Real World. You can go to WBAI.org, and that streams on Fridays at 6:30 p.m. But if you go look up Real World, you can hear past shows. I also do a podcast called Brown and Black with Jack Rico, another film critic, colleague of ours. So that's me.
Cool. And a science fiction guy. I love it. We have to talk some more.
Oh, for sure.
And Wilson Morales, you're up.
Pretty simple. It's blackfilmandtv.com. That's where you can find as much as you can, in terms of what's happening in the latest of film and TV. Now that we're also TV stuff. You get films like Mangrove, that's out there, and Sylvie's Love, that's out there. And you can use the same words for social media, blackfilmandtv.com.
Well, two quick questions, Wilson. One, since you cover TV, are you excited about Underground Railroad?
Yeah, not just yet. I want to see the pilot episode to see where it goes. It's on Amazon. Obviously, it's Barry Jenkins, so right now it's the network and the name that's selling. I just think about the show Underground, when it first came out, no one knew what to expect. No one knew who Misha Green was. It was a lot of newcomers, on there. And then it was a matter of you got the show, and I thought it was good when I first saw the pilot, but you had to sell the network, WGN. And so once they sold the network in terms of an audience where they can find it, then the show started taking off, because there's a lot of good product out there, good shows, but if they don't have the right network, you got to find it. It's what we're talking about now. It's like all these streaming channels, if it's not Netflix or Amazon or Hulu, where else? Is anybody watching any films on Peacock? It's like you got to sell the network to say oh, do they have any good products there? Tubi, it's like, it's like no disrespect. It's like, oh, we just sold to Tubi. I'm like, who's got that? It's like, okay, Tubi, you got a Topic. I think there's a streaming channel called Topic. They got product out there. So it's like, you got to sell, the product where it's at, and get more people to look at it and find it, because we're getting a lot more there, because until theaters I think we have another 2 years probably until we get 100% back, if ever.
Easily. That's in this country. It's not even talking about other countries. And what about, you didn't give out, I know she didn't give out your OnlyFans.
My what?
Okay. All right. Well, I'm Charles Kirkland from thefilmgordon.com and DC Film Life. And as Tim would wrap up every show, he would say, take the time to see something good out there in the movies. Now, of course, you know, streaming services is where you're going. So, and we're looking forward to 2021. It's got to turn around, guys, right?
Yes.
We can only hope.
This week, and we look forward to having each one of you come back on a show in the future.
Yes, indeed.
And Tim, get up off the couch.
Right.
Feel better, Tim.
Feel better, Tim.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.